welcome. Thank you so much for coming today. I know many of you, this is your first time at Buffalo Art Studios, and this is our 35th year, I want to say now, here in the Tri-Main Center. We have 30 artists who have studios here. And in addition to that, we have our shows that we curate, and we also have classes, education, and also the Jumpstart program. And that's part of what you're here for today. The Jumpstart program is where we work with high school students who are interested in careers in the arts. So we offer programs like today. We call this a development day where they can meet people in different fields. We also offer classes, and we do a lot of interesting things. We'll go to museums. We just went to the Albright Knox last month. So it's a program that will have some programs available for everyone at the end here. If you're not part of the Jumpstart, but are interested in hearing more information, we'll have those. Sydney has the flyers right here, and we'll put them on the table. We'll go ahead and put them on the table with the food there. Very good, thank you. And we're gonna have a couple of our Jumpstart students emceeing the event for us today too. The goal of the symposium is to introduce high school students and others to careers that combine the arts and healthcare, art therapy, medical illustration, and art and healthcare. And you'll find out exactly what I mean by the art and healthcare shortly. Feel free to ask any questions at the end, and I will go ahead and have Eero start and ask the first question and introduce the panelists for us. Thank you so much.
All right. Today, for our panelists, we have Rob Flewell as a medical illustrator, Ginny O'Brien from Roswell Park, Carla Reeves as an art therapist, and Edreys and Alexa Wajed, Cultural Inc. Sorry, I have a hard to pronounce the last name too, I get it. And for all panelists, can you introduce yourselves and tell us about your occupation?
We'll start with Jenny. If you could pass her microphone.
All right. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for being here. I want to thank Buffalo Art Studio and everyone who works here and supports Buffalo Art Studio to bring this conference to fruition. This is really an amazing opportunity to share for all of us to share what we do in the realm of using the arts in healthcare and medicine. And I would like to, did you want to know about my job? Did you just ask that? There we go, I broke the ice. Your title? My title is Resident Artist for the Kathleen and Joseph Curatello Visual Arts Pediatric Program at Roswell Park. That is my position, and I can tell you more about that later. I've been there for 6 years, and I guess I'll pass it on to you.
Are we going down the line? Or good morning. My name is Edreys and Wajed. I am the co-founder of Eat Off Art. The other co-founder will introduce herself. And also co-founder of Cultural Inc., which is a nonprofit that uses art in a way to address some of the things we're talking about now, using it as a tool and as a method for healing, for mindfulness, for self-discovery, things of that nature. And it's a pleasure to be here. And I'm a visual artist.
Good morning. Happy to be here. My name is Alexa Wajed. I am a visual artist, jewelry designer, and a chef, and co-founder of Eat Off Art and Culture. And yeah, ditto. Happy to be here.
My name's Rob Flewell. I'm a board-certified medical illustrator, currently at the Atlas studio team, visual team at Roswell. I just started in May. Before that, I was a freelancer for 25 plus years. So a long time hacking it out, scraping a living, but very happy to be at Roswell and helping our team out.
I'm Carla Reeves. I'm an art therapist currently at West Buffalo Charter School. I also have my own private practice where I see school-aged children. And prior to working at West Buffalo Charter School for the past 2.5 years, I was at Gateway Longview's therapeutic school for about 10.5 years.
I'm Danielle Seva. I work at Hunt Art Gallery, and I actually just started at Oshide Children's Hospital as their artist in residence, and I'll be talking about art therapy program at Buff State.
Hi, my name is Vivian Waddle. I'm a current senior at the Cleveland Institute of Art in the Life Science Illustration program. So I'm currently working on my senior project, the end of the year thesis. I'm also a resident artist at the Kisley Lab, which is a microscopy lab over at Case Western Reserve University.
Alexa and Andres, can you tell us about your art-based healing approach and how it came through your visual art practice?
I guess I'll start. So we've been artists for a very long time, visual artists, public art, working with the community on a regular basis. And we started our nonprofit a few years ago and recognized the need for everyone to have access to the arts and the importance of the arts on not only the mental wellness, but also the physical wellness of people. And we were granted, thankfully, an award last year from the West New York Field Office of Mental Health when they determined that they needed innovative programming to tackle trauma and grief and pain. And this came about after the 514 massacre. And the grant was focused on the east side of Buffalo and for people that were impacted by this tragedy. And of course, the snowstorm and deaths and so many things that have been happening in Buffalo as a whole. And we recognize this importance that art really allowed people to pour their emotions and feelings into simply just being mindful and being creative. And we created programming around that as well as a workbook and
we recognize that it is a very simple and cost-effective entry point for people. As you become more proficient and more of a professional in the industry of art, obviously the investment rises, right? Like the more things you need, there's prices on those things, but the entry point to like start making some art or do something artistic is very simple. It is literally as simple as something to make a mark on. It could be cardboard, it could be paper, it could be an envelope that came in the mail, you know, and a utensil. It could be crayon, pencil, whatever. And so we noticed that just those simple things in this high-tech atmosphere and world that we're in right now, we lost kind of connection with that. And so any point that we can interject and slow down, you know, the processes of us being tapping and pointing and hitting and sliding things, we can do those same motions with a utensil in your hand now, right? You can still slide. Now you make a line when you slide now, right? So you do different things. So we just replace the tool or the technology, so to speak, with a simpler, accessible tool through making art. And that practice has shown many benefits, studied well and documented.
You might want to mention you have your books here. That are they allowed to take one?
Yes, yes.
We have done for people. So this is a book that was created. We had a cohort of 8 artists, and with the programming, every participant was able to take home the supplies that they work with. So if it was a sewing class, they took home a sewing machine. If it was a visual arts class, they took a whole pack of visual arts supplies. And then this book was created. Each of us provided some input in terms of what could be utilized for this mode of healing book. Visual arts, again, coloring pages, journal prompts, zine making. And then at the end, we have a list of Erie County mental health resources that everyone can benefit from.
So please take one.
We have more.
And I'd like all of you to tell me, what qualifications do you need for your job and where'd you get your degree?
So to be an art therapist, you need an undergrad degree, which could primarily be in almost anything, but you also need several art courses or knowledge of art. So whether it's a studio and art class or like some foundation art classes, along with several other psychology classes as well. And then you need a master's degree. I went to Nazareth College in Rochester. I commuted from Buffalo for 2.5. It was a full 2 years. So you start fall of your first year and you end in the spring of your second year. And I got married in between the 2-week break I got in summer because I wasn't initially planning on going to Nazareth. I just was like, I'm going to apply and see what happens, and I got in. And then after that, while you're in your graduate program, you do several different internships. And then from when I graduated Nazareth, one of my internships was with the Arts and Healthcare program. And I ended up working as an artist in residence, not as an art therapist, because they're two separate things. But as an artist in residence at what was Women and Children's Hospital before it became OSHI. And then, sorry to add, to work in New York State, you have to have a license. So I had to get some certified or supervised hours of working with another licensed art therapist for several, it's like, I think over 100 hours. And then take my board certification exam, and then apply for my permit through New York State. So you cannot practice as an art therapist without your New York State license. And then as a national accreditation, we have what they call the ATR-BC. So then you're board certified and accredited throughout the entire country of America. And so in most states that qualifies you as an art therapist, but specifically to New York, you need your licensed creative arts therapist license.
For medical illustration, it's typically a master's degree. Typically, I was an individual did a bachelor's, which they had at RIT way back in the 90s, and they still have it. And also CIA has a bachelor's degree still, right? Maybe Toronto too. There's about, I would say, about 6 schools that offer medical illustration: Johns Hopkins, Augusta, like Toronto, RIT, CIA, Chicago. And there used to be many more, but they've sort of kind of, like Michigan, they've been kind of enveloped into other programs. There's actually one that was at Mass General in Boston as well that many famous artists came out of. I think Duke as well actually had a program for a short time in the 20s. Very old profession. Actually, the first medical illustrator was Leonardo da Vinci. So he was the very first one. Not nearly as smart as he was, but I get away with it. Right, Karen? My boss is back there. So yes, so it's typically a master's degree, but I've done very well for myself as a bachelor's degree. And also I had an additional certification, board certified to the Association of Medical Illustrators, which is a national organization, and that's just international kind of certification process. And I did that additionally after 4 years of working professionally, and very difficult test. It takes you a whole day to do. So good luck on that when you do that. So you need some help, just let me know. I've proctored a few exams, so it's an extensive organization that really helps us out, and I've judged salons and done many things over the years, and a really great information source. And that is it for me.
So I have a BFA from Buff State, and then I also took the art therapy minor at Buff State. So it's a combination of you have to take art therapy specific courses, fine art courses, and then you also have to take psychology courses.
For CIA, it's a BFA, so a Bachelor of Fine Arts, and we don't currently have the graduate program. We used to, and then Tom's trying to bring it back. Yeah, but we take we take a mixture of art classes at CIA, but then also because we're right next to Case Western Reserve University, we take a number of science classes over there. So we take like biology, human or anatomy and physiology. And then we have the choice to pick one of our own interests, like gross anatomy is one that is pretty popular. And we're really close to like University Hospital and a bunch of resources like the Natural History Museum that we're able to work with and like learn from like being in those environments, which is really cool.
Well, let me add one thing. Yeah, gross anatomy is typically, in order to get a board certification, you need to have gross anatomy. It is a very essential program to have for that. And you guys have a very good program there, absolutely.
And when you say gross anatomy, you mean?
Human dissection, just like in med school,
Yeah,
same thing.
I know. But
Yeah, I went to, I was at RIT, and so we went to University of Rochester's hospital, and that's where we did our gross anatomy. That's actually a main help for that. Now they now have it at RIT, their own human dissection lab there. So lucky. I had to go all the way into downtown Rochester, back from RIT all the time, every day. But oh well, progress.
And this is on. Okay, good. Okay. Well, my educational background is varied, and I did attend Wichita State University in Wichita, Kansas, and nursing school with a minor in art. I originally had started at Kansas State University and then couldn't decide between art and science and nursing. So I found a real progressive nursing school that accepted arts credits from undergraduate. And so I could receive one of the first baccalaureate degrees in nursing in the country. So could not shake my love of art. I've been an artist my whole life, and was working at University of Kansas Medical Center in Kansas City, and realized that the Kansas City Art Institute was nearby where I'd gone as a child for courses. And I was noticing in pulmonary ICU where I worked that families were bringing in artworks and photographs for their loved ones who were mostly intubated. And I noticed such an impact on also having these artworks and these photographs, almost like collages in the rooms. So that stuck with me. I decided once I could make a living to pay for my art school, I dropped down part-time as a nurse and studied art at the Kansas City Art Institute for a couple of years. And my first day, we were learning how to assess a painting, and it just dawned on me, oh my goodness, I'm assessing a patient. There were so many connections between looking at art and things like turgor, skin color, symmetry, and you all know all about this. All of us have experienced, either as a patient or as a caretaker, the power of looking at art and looking at a person. Fast forward, I did study at the graduate level. I attended Buffalo State University and received my BFA there. Later on, I moved to Buffalo after Kansas City, received an MA with Nancy Belfer, who's a renowned fiber artist, and then studied art therapy at Buffalo State University as well. Did not complete my art therapy degree because I decided to finish my MFA instead, because the textile department opened up in Syracuse. So if you've been at the if you have been at the Birchfield lately, you will see the magnificent Anne Clark and her gorgeous, gorgeous knitted, almost looking woven artworks. And she was my professor. She was the person who started that MFA program, started it up again. And so she literally changed my life. Graduated, applied for a job at UB Anderson Gallery, UB Art Galleries. I was the curator of education for 15 years there, and that's where I developed my director allowed me to do outreach programming with Aspire of Western New York, and their art program. I helped them start their original art program, and so I have a lot of expertise in developing art programs. Also at UB, I was able to take medical students and MFA students over to ECMC, and we worked for 4 years, got some funding, and worked for 4 years there, just one session every other week for about 4 years. So that was a wonderful opportunity. Fast forward again, my credentials for the current program, people knew my work, and art therapists and resident artists at Roswell gave my name to the funders of the current program, and their vision was it's a brand new, semi-brand new clinic, pediatric clinic at Roswell Park. It's an outpatient clinic. The funders want art making happening for the pediatric kids, and they were aware of my background in nursing, but that I was not an art therapist. And I am very touchy and sensitive about people calling me an art therapist, because since I studied at the graduate level, I know what I'm not. And an art therapist in psychodynamic models and their expertise, they're licensed. I'm a registered nurse, but I am not an art therapist. And what I do is therapeutic, but it's not therapy. We have a lot of experts in the clinic. We do have a psychologist, so I can recognize a few things, but I would love it if we had an art therapist in this clinic. And I'll share one later. I took up a lot of time. I'm sorry. Take notes. And I'd like to also say that this field belongs to all of us. It doesn't matter what you're majoring in. I work with the med school occasionally still, and medical students have an array of backgrounds, including BFAs, including literature, writing, musicians. I'll tell you more about that later, but it belongs to all of us. Sciences, and clearly we need that. Yeah. Okay. I've been wanting to put that out for all these like-minded people that did it, right? Yeah, thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you, BAS. I did have a studio here like 25 years ago, so I keep begging for another one, but maybe someday. Yeah, in time. Yeah.
Now, I think it's on.
Yes.
Now?
Yes.
So, qualifications to be a visual professional, full-time visual artist. There is no recipe that I can share with you that if I give you all of the ingredients and you put it in the oven at 475, that is going to come out to be the cake that you desire. There is no ingredient for it. No, well, I won't say there is no ingredient for it. There's no master formula for it, is what I'm getting to. However, some of the qualifications are more so traits of persistence, curiosity, commitment to the practice, nonconformity, being able to look beyond what's in front of you, meaning that you don't know how you're going to get from A to B, but your curiosity is what will kind of get you there. And also, another characteristic is to be nimble, right? To be nimble and be flexible. because one way that you may in your mind have it designed, I'm going to do this and this is going to be my yield. It's going to look like this. If you're resistant to what the art practice is lending you and showing you and being able to follow where it takes you as opposed to you steering it in a particular way, that's where you meet a lot of challenges. This is just my personal experience. So sometimes you have to let your practice lead you, and you just kind of just go with it, and you don't have the answers. It's like, I don't know why I'm going this. I don't know why I'm drawing circles all the time, right? So you have to. That's what I mean about being curious. However, I will say, I went to Buffalo State College as well, and I finished there with a Bachelor in Science in graphic design. Graphic design still is with me. It shows in my work. I didn't think that it would, but it shows in my work. That as of last 2022, I completed my Master's of Fine Arts at UB. So I went back with resistance. I really did not like school, but it was a wise investment of my time, because as an MFA grad now and a terminal degree holder in the arts, I learned a great deal about myself, why I do things, why I do them the way I do them. So it was like a lot of self-discovery in that programming, getting my master's. And now I'll just say this and conclude, is that practicing in the arts, you don't need any of that. You don't need any of that. You just need to have like the wherewithal to know that, proclaim this is what you want to do, but you also have to be willing to accept that you are not in full control of what your success per se looks like. You have to define that success for yourself. You have to kind of make your own, margins of what you think success is. So if success is for you to work full time in whatever kind of, whatever, like a job or what have you, and you have enough time to make art on the side, that is not failure to me. Like, that's not like, oh, I'm not a real artist. And a lot of people like to say that, like, oh, I just kind of play with art. Well, no, it's a practice you need to, put a little more honor and respect on, that you make time to do something. And then the next step to that would be sharing it. But you also don't have to do that either. You can just do the practice. It's up to you to share it. But the last piece of this will be, if you want to be a professional artist, you have to get over the vulnerability of knowing that your work will be critiqued in the public all the time, beyond yourself. Because we are the worst, we are our own critics before it even leaves the studio, before it leaves your home. You're already determining whether it's beautiful or whether it's ugly or whether it's not worthy. So you have to get comfortable with that hump. Make the work, show the work, share the work, and keep developing and investing in your practice. Those are the qualifications I can share with you.
That's very well said. Well, I am not a trained artist. I think I'm the whole outlier in this panel. I am a business major, hospitality major, project manager, and a culinary chef. And I was one of those resistant people. I've been creative my whole life, but I was always told, go to work, get a job, retire, and then you can do whatever you want to. I guess I was supposed to break that mold. And I thought I was supposed to do this corporate job forever. And every time I got into a good swing of, okay, this job is all right, I could do this, something would happen when I would have to leave. Then I found a job that I wanted to retire from, pharmaceuticals, and they moved to Toronto, and I had to make a decision. And that's when I decided to choose myself, and I went back to culinary art school. And I found the importance of food and health in our communities, and the fact that many people are struggling mentally and physically with chronic diseases, and how diet and food are truly something that can assist with that. So I started teaching classes, and I also learned how to be vulnerable and accept myself as an artist. And with my personal meditative practice of line drawing, abstract artwork, the things I did for myself, I recognized that it could help other people in many different ways. So no, I am not an art therapist, but I do recognize the importance of arts practice as a therapeutic, yes, therapeutic practice. And the other qualification I think I have is grief and trauma, where I need a way to process, and I need a way to feel, and a way to express my feelings. And I have found that through my arts practice, whether I'm making jewelry or cooking or creating artwork or simply doodling, yes, that is an arts practice, that I found relief, I found joy, I found healing, and I found my voice.
What I do is not, it's not necessarily fine art, even though that seems to be somewhat of a trend, a little bit more of a creative to things. You can imagine medical illustration is very stringent in how I see myself as a visual educator more than anything. So conveying very difficult information and boiling it down to something, what I strive for is to have an instant recognition of what your content is. And you know, like if I'm drawing surgeries, like a step-by-step part of a surgery, I want someone to be able to identify what they're seeing right away. You know, so I have I wouldn't say I have as broad of an audience, I guess, for my work, but it is. I think it's a necessary thing, and it's still very relevant. Still very relevant sort of business. So, but yeah, educator is what I see myself a little bit more as an artist. I started off as a fine artist. And I just, you know, my dad was a hospital medical corpsman in Vietnam, and so he always had the medical books, and I always was fascinated by that, so I felt compelled to, you know, to do that. So that was, and it's kind of along the way, you know, I was always an artist. I was always the art nerd in high school. I did all the little crazy contest things. And then when I got to University of Southern Maine, I just felt like doing an anatomy and physiology class. Like I was a nursing school at University of Southern Maine. And so the professor's like, I caught you drawing in my class. I have work for you to do. So she had me do a manual, basically, of the thing. So I went from working at a little bookstore making nothing to actually making a fair amount. And she says, Rob, I think you need to be a medical illustrator. I'm like, what is that? I had no idea what it was, even though I looked at it most of my life as a kid. You know, and that wild. And the doctor I worked for, Dr. Guru, he is a huge lover of medical illustration. He grew up with his dad looking at atlases on their book. Then there are a whole legacy of doctors. So, and that's nice having that as your boss, loving what you do. So that's pretty neat. I felt very privileged.
Thank you. And that's one of the things that when putting together this panelist that I was trying to make sure that everyone knows there's not one path. There's several different paths. You can see there's several different degrees. Some of you started off with one thing and ended up with another. And so I think the panelists show how beautifully varied this field is. And it really is what you make of it. Time is slipping away, but I was wondering if we could go through and have everyone talk a little bit. What does a typical day look like? And I know maybe you can talk a little bit, Alexia and Edreys, about what a class looks like, what a class. And then maybe for the students, we can talk a little bit about like what type of classes you take a little more specifically. That would be great. Thank you. And Jenny, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Okay, typical day. The way the clinic is arranged, the clinic was opened, I think, about 7 years ago, I'd say. And it is a collaborative endeavor between Bouchard Children's and Roswell Park. Located at Roswell Park on the first floor, it is like a beehive. We have a fairly small playroom where it's really wonderful, and it does accommodate art making. But we also have kids that come in just for follow-up care. So on one side of the clinic, doctors and therapists, the psychologists, social workers, and the list goes on, who are taking care of these kids. see kids on that end, and those kids can run into the art making area in the playroom and make really quick ephemeral like artworks where they can paint small clay works, little monoprints or whatever, and we do give art supplies to the kids and their families to take home. So we may have the kids that are receiving lengthy infusions, say 2 to 4 hours each visit, will come in and they're able to work on projects that will take time. Over time, when they come back, they'll continue to work on mixed media projects, and they're all visual arts based. But we may have 2 kids that we work with that day. We may have 6 kids. We are constantly interrupted because the doctors and nurses, they're very supportive about what we're doing. And Brittany Denegris, I mentioned, is our new resident artist in the clinic. So now I figure I was just doing sessions by myself. They called me a program, but I said, really, I'm a session. But now we're a program. And with Brittany, and she's magnificent. We do a wide array of projects. So time is of the essence to try to get something done, but we will literally have doctors come in because they're really comfortable with what's happening in art making. They literally see the transformation of a calming and enthralled by really wonderful art supplies that our donors make available. They love canvases and they feel professional. We do exhibit their artwork quarterly, but back to my typical day, I do not have one. I have to be real adaptable, and I welcome. We actually have med students dropping in to say hello, and they want to see what's happening, and nursing students. We've got volunteers. It's a happy interruption, and every single day for the last 6 years, each day has been different. I have not had one day that replicated the next. But I think my background as a nurse was very helpful to be in that clinic. All the nurses knew I'm an old nurse, but I do have an active license. And I felt very comfortable starting that program. And now I feel, not that I was so great or whatever, I just happened to have that experience and was not afraid of what was happening. But now I feel whatever piece I can leave behind in this program when I move forward and attempt something else to do, to bring something new to everyone that's interested. I feel anyone with some experience and a good heart, most likely you do need a bachelor's degree in arts and healthcare, I would say, and working in the hospital. But the days are, I'll write a book and then tell you all about it that way. Maybe we can get it together. Okay, thanks.
We don't teach classes every day, so.
And we don't have typical days.
Our typical day is very untypical.
Yeah, our week is very atypical.
Yes.
We can go from creating a mural to teaching a workshop or a seminar to creating a logo for graphic design to business development to strategy to website design. And I'm sure there's something in between.
And what she's running down is this week. That was literally this week. Like, no fluff, and you forgot the 150 person workshop that we did at the not the Henry, but the Richardson. That was all this week. So the only thing that's typical or standard for us is the practice of making, creating, sharing, like regrouping, and just continually just to putting message right out there and continue to be a tool or a resource, an accessible resource and tool for just promoting the arts. That's what we do as EDOF Art.
And And for some of our workshops, we work with the corporate world, but we also work with community and we work with schools. And the workshops that we do recognize that art is a luxury. There it is. Art's a luxury that not everyone has access to and not everyone has the time to do. So what we promote through our workshops and our classes is simply taking 5 minutes, 10 minutes, dedicating some portion of your day, whether in the morning or in the afternoon, to focus on yourself, to ground yourself, to be mindful, to take on simple practices. We mentioned doodling and mark making, but people don't recognize how therapeutic that can be. Simply for even 5 minutes, taking a sheet of paper and just doodling, setting a timer, and you can almost feel your body relax. As Edreys mentioned, we did a workshop for 150 nonprofit executives who are constantly doing work for the community, who are constantly pouring out, constantly giving. And we spent an hour with them, just having fun with crayons. And it was so interesting to see how in the beginning they were hesitant to be involved. They didn't want to come to the workshop, and they clearly told us that. But by the end, they were thankful, they were relaxed, you could see people exhaling. And to find out that they don't journal.
They realize how beneficial something so simple was.
Right.
You know, so you didn't have to give me that.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, so that's what a typical workshop will be. Sometimes if we have workshops in our studios, we have free sign-ups, people will come and we will sit and have whatever session that is. Again, sewing, visual arts, poetry, where people are learning how to journal, but also learning how to write their feelings down and create that into a spoken word piece of art.
I definitely do, but I have a typical day. I don't know. I was a freelancer for so long, no day was ever typical. However, Roswell is, we work for the hospital itself, as well as our own department. We have a surgical atlas that we're completing. We do many different things within our journal work. But we do have some exciting things. We worked on the BHE, the Buffalo Healthcare Exploration. We do that every year for high school students, making them aware of all the healthcare opportunities that they have. Definitely helped out for that. Innovation projects, that was really neat. The stuff that high school students come up with, little inventions that they do to help out the community of the hospital was mind-blowing, actually. Also, another exciting project that we just started on was with the Indigenous Center of Roswell, and it was for the Two-Spirit LGBTQ plus community on cancer awareness. And there'll be a film, there'll be 2 films, one on colon cancer and liver cancer among that community that make them more aware of it. So I'm very much looking forward to that project. I've worked on IMAX films, I've done pharmaceutical comic books, I've worked on a whole bunch of different stuff. This one is very, very unique, and I'm looking forward to that one. That's brand new, so we'll have to see how it goes.
Before I talk about my typical day, I just wanted to add that my undergrad is in art education. I was going to be an art teacher, and in that process I struggled having to grade children's artwork when I got the ability to see their process of getting to that final piece, and that stuck with me throughout my entire undergrad degree. And then I suffered a death in the family, and my art making process helped me through that, and that's what kind of led me to my art therapy background. But my typical day, and I wouldn't necessarily call it a typical day because I have a schedule, and some of those days, most of those days during the week, at least during my school day, which starts at 7:10 in the morning, I can have that schedule and I can just basically go out the door by 8 a.m. I have a walkie, so staff throughout the school building have the ability to be like, hey, Mrs. Reeves, we need you in 201, and I go to 201 and there's a kiddo crying, and then I take them to my office space, my very generous office space in the basement of the school, and work with them just to figure out what's going on? You know, why are you crying? I don't necessarily walk into my office and say that, you know, immediately. My office has a wide range of, obviously, art materials, but also I have a lot of play materials as well. I am not a play therapist, but I do have a few courses and background in play therapy, but ultimately I work at a school, right? And children's work is play. So that ultimately kind of opens them up to be able to, you know, start to talk to me about things. We get at a great space, we create some art, I find out why they're crying. Sometimes it's as easy as like, I didn't get the color piece of paper I wanted, easy fix. Other times it's a little bit more than that. At a gen ed school where I currently work, I can't necessarily really get into the nitty gritty of what I would call a typical therapy session because at the end of that time together, they do have to go back to their classrooms and they do need to function as a student. When I was at Gateway Longview, that was a 6:1:1 classroom ratio. And it was a therapeutic school. So it allowed for us to kind of work with that. The goal was to work on, you know, whether it was trauma or grief or, you know, trying to get them to be more comfortable in the school setting. So I could do the therapy in those sessions together because at the end of the day, if I worked with one student at Gateway literally for the day because that's where they were at, that was okay. Whereas at West Buffalo Charter School, I come in, I address the issue, and they go back to their day. When I finish up my day at West Buffalo, then I go to my private practice in Williamsville, and I hold hour sessions with children ranging from 5 to about, I think my oldest right now is 14. And then my day ends at about 8 o'clock and I go home and I, you know, attend to my family with my 2 little children.
Yeah, so I graduated in 2019. So I was pursuing a BFA, and towards the end of my BFA, I decided to take on the art therapy minor. The minor includes 3 different classes. One is talking about art therapy, kind of general practices, what it is, what it entails, and then you also take another class that is just materials. So the whole class, you're learning what type of art making you could use for different populations. Or if you have a situation where someone wants to talk about maybe their life story or is having difficulty creating a timeline for their life story to create like an altered book. So it's very hands-on. And then the other class is you go on site, so you have an internship. My internship was at McKinley High School. I worked with kids with disabilities. And I think the minor is really great too because I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with my art practice. I knew I wanted to be an artist, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to Nazareth and get my degree, my master's degree, or if I wanted to take a different route. So when I took the art therapy minor, I learned so much about how art can be therapeutic. And I think when you do pursue an art career, kind of like what Edreys and Alexa were saying, and Ginny too, it's not always like very clear cut. You don't really know where it's going to take you. I knew I wanted to have some sort of therapeutic practice within art because that's how I make art. And it led me into my current career now. So I think the minor itself is a great way to figure out kind of where your footing is in the art world. There's so many different ways you can take your art practice, whether that's the business route or the medical route, or there's so many different routes you can take. So the art therapy minor really helped me figure out exactly where I wanted to go. And I've worked with so many different populations, and you learn that within the minor. I've worked with, right out of college, I started working with nursing homes. So I would teach art within nursing homes. And this wasn't art therapy, like you were saying, it's art as therapy. So what does the specific person need in order to get them to make art? Sometimes that's the most difficult. The most difficult task is trying to get someone to actually physically make the art. So the art therapy minor really helps with that.
So for classes at CIA, all freshmen take the same foundation year, and that works on like building art making skills like observational and life drawing, elements of design, 2D and 3D. And then for life science majors, that includes like biology classes and like starting to take those science courses. And then once you get into the major, sophomore year, it's a lot of building, there's a lot of different avenues within medical illustration. So like material-wise, there's classes that are specifically centered around like traditional materials like pen and ink and like graphite dust. And those are really helpful for like understanding like how to draw these forms that you're seeing and how to work on that clarification of information, like Rob was saying. And then moving on from that, you start to get into like digital media, and that looks like Adobe Suite, Photoshop, Illustrator, learning how to really understand those tools and create like rendered pieces. And then we get kind of, we get like a really, we get a lot of examples of different ways to create this art. Like we have 3D modeling classes and 3D animation classes as well. So working in programs like Maya, where we can model these forms. And then outside of like our own major, we take like graphic design classes. So there's a lot of avenues, I kind of said already, but a lot of avenues for scientific illustrators. A lot of us work, or getting out into the field, there's a lot of work as like graphic designers, or working in that 3D modeling, 3D animation space. So there's really a lot of paths you can take, and also like topic as well. There's medical illustration, like surgical illustration, medical legal is another pathway. And then there's sort of like the natural science side with like veterinary illustration, botanical illustration, or like forensics as well. So there's a lot of, it's a very, I would say, specific major and profession, but within that, there's a ton of different ways you can go about it and choose your work that way.
To all panelists, do you have any advice for students? Do you have any advice for students?
When you're in the professional life, at least for us, deadline-driven type of things, you don't get the same amount of time when working on or you really crafting your work. And I think being a student, that's the time to do that. A little bit in learning that process completely and having finished work, I guess. Me as like an educator, I see some things like, it doesn't look finished. Like, I'm going with it, I know if I was a professor, that would probably be my biggest crawl, I guess, having finished work. I think and you have the time to do it as a student, as opposed to when you have to struggle to make money. Me as a freelancer, I wanted to do fine art on the side, but I never had time to do it, So, but I'm also a musician too, so I always struggle between all those things. But maybe I'll get back to fine art eventually. But art, I do it on all day. I draw all day. So, but I will. I know I'll do it. But find the time to craft your work as best you can.
And I would add to that, it's okay to not know what you want to do.
Yeah.
Plain and simple. You're going to have a lot of people talking in your ear about what you should do, or what they see you doing, or how they think you'll be successful. Yeah, receive that with your own filter, right? Yes, we all want you to be successful. We want you to have some form of structure. In this day and age, you may or may not go to school right away. You may decide to take a trade, which might also help with your art, but also some way help you in the future. You're on whatever path you're supposed to be on, and if something doesn't feel right, it typically isn't right. And you have to understand what that groove is to really make you feel comfortable, to make your heart sing, that you wake up with excitement every day to do what you want to do, we wake up every day with excitement, even though sometimes during the day we're like, you know what, I really don't want to be doing this, but I did ask for this. This is exactly what I wanted, so I'm really thankful that I'm doing it. So I just say, just be gentle with yourselves and allow yourselves to flourish and be creative and explore and be flexible and adaptable and get as much information as you can, because that will teach you or show you what you will be in the future.
I'll add that I think it's important that since being teenagers, I mean, you have a lot going on. You have a lot on your shoulders. The world is on your shoulders, so to speak, and you're, again, to Alexa's point, wondering, what am I going to do? I have to check the box now and have it all laid out. It's not true. As you age into decades, 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, you're still going to be asking yourself that same question. What am I supposed to be doing right now? With a career. People still ask themselves, am I doing enough? What am I supposed to? So that question is not going to go away, is what I'm saying. I think you need to also put yourself in spaces where art is happening, right? Like I think you need to, art exhibits, art openings, things of that nature. I was a very shy kid in high school, and you know, I think what helped me a lot was the fact that I was at least always doing the thing that I wanted to do. Like I was always drawing. So me doing that, somebody's looking over your shoulder, somebody sees you from a distance, and somebody sees value in what you're doing, and those become mentors at times. So to Rob's point, when he was in school and his teacher said, oh, I love what you're doing, and gave him this, you know, kind of this task to say, you should apply that to this. That's the same way that it can happen for you. As long as you're doing the thing, whatever that is, and you share it here and there, and you're just kind of in places where art is happening, conversation and dialogue can then persist, right? And then that leads to an opportunity. So I'll close with this. 2017, I was one of the 4 artists on the Freedom Wall, right, with the Buffalo AKG. There was a young man named Nigel Bowles. Very shy, incredibly talented. His dad brought him to the wall at the corner of Michigan and Ferry. Was like, you got to see my son's work. Now his son is bashful, like, man, you know, no kid wants their parent to be like, you got to see my son dance. Nobody wants their parent to be that for them. However, there are times that are very fitting and appropriate for that, and that moment was that. So he brought his son to the space to meet 4 artists practicing, working on this mural. He showed us his work, and Alexa and I followed him ever since. So 7 years later, this year, we brought him into one of the largest projects that we had the opportunity to do with the Buffalo AKG. The first building in Erie County, owned by Erie County, to be wrapped with a mural.
And it's a healthcare building.
It's the Jesse Nash Clinic. It's a health clinic. Just through Nigel being in the spaces and being there and showing what he does, not that he's boasting it and putting it in the face, but making it accessible and visual for other people that you never know who's watching. You never know who sees your work. All right? So anyway, we brought him into the fold. He had his first experience doing this large mural with one of the biggest, most important art institutions in Western New York, so to speak. And that can happen for you too. Like, he's an example of that. We met him when he was 17, right? And so now, through that mentorship, we're showing him other opportunities to where he can apply his practice and apply his work and start forging his own way.
Just wanted to let you guys know a couple things. For advice for our students, I would definitely investigate internships really wherever you'd like to go. Just any clinic, school. Don't be afraid to design your own internship or volunteer role. Also, look for grants. Even as young people, there are grants out there. One thing that I did not realize when people ask me, where did you go to school? And I rattle off all these
degrees and such. Well, I have 4 degrees. That's embarrassing, really, because I did not need to take all those courses. I thought in my mind that I needed a BFA in order to get an MFA, which used to be true, but really, if you go talk to someone, I could have taken my minor in, I don't regret any of it, but I could have been much more efficient on what I specifically wanted. So what I'm getting at is you can customize, especially these days with online education and really open-ended areas of expertise you can look around for. Tell your, if you're wanting to go to junior college, a trade, receive a specific degree, go to the counselors or professors directly. You can find that information and say, I'd like you, for instance, myself, I could have said, I am completing a nursing degree, but I want an MFA and not a master's degree in nursing. And you can do that now. So think about what you want, and you can really customize. Don't be afraid to ask. And as everyone has said, don't be afraid. Just trust your instincts, what makes your heart sing. I feel that I have a heart of a nurse, but my soul is definitely that of an artist. So artist first, everything else circles around, that sort of thing, right? Yeah, okay.
Just wanted to go off a little bit about what Alexa had mentioned about not listening to other people say that you should do a certain thing. I had an individual in my life that told me that when I was in high school, and this is a really great program because I thought, okay, well, I can't, create art for the rest of my life just and live off of that. I guess I'll be an art teacher because that was the only career in art that I was aware of, and that's what I did. And then when I graduated, the field was so saturated that I couldn't find a job, and that's, and then I reflected a little bit more on what really I wanted to do with the rest of my life, because that individual right now who's saying those things to you isn't going to be with you in 50 years from now, right? This is your career. This is the rest of your life. You need to do what's going to work for you and what your passion is, because you got to wake up every day and go to that job and do that skeleton. Yes. So make sure it's something that you're willing to spend the rest of your life doing. Yes.
Yeah, I've been doing this for like 30-something years now. I got into the pre-med program at RIT just before I graduated with the medical illustration degree. And my dad was a little disappointed I didn't continue that, but I had a professor offer me a job that was one in Boston. And that summer I was working as a janitor at one of the buildings, thinking, okay, I got to do all this academic work in the fall, oh God. But I'm really happy that I chose the route. I wouldn't have had it any other way. It's like I was custom built for how my mind is. And try to do that. Try to custom build your career to yourself, because you will be happy. When you're happy, you do the best work. Amen. Yeah, that's right. So I think that's a good way to take it.
Thank you so much to all the presenters. And I want to make a point too that they each brought in, some of them, their own work for visual art. Some of them brought in work products from students, their clients. And so come up here, take a look at what they've done, and have a conversation. We have plenty of coffee, I believe, still. And we have time for a couple questions. Does anyone have a question? Yes?
For like artists like you, is there ever a day, like, since I know artists, you have a driving motive that makes you want to make your art, is it possible for you to just skip days when you feel there isn't any more like artistic juice to give or something?
Yes. Let me just say this. We are all in this culture, this hustle culture, where you have to be working nonstop. You have to be working 40 to 80 hours a week, no matter what. As an artist, because you are pouring so much of yourself into your work on a constant basis, you have to take breaks. You have to give yourself the grace to not do anything, because we're receptive to everything out there. So if we're constantly going, we don't have the opportunity to stop, be still, and receive all the things that are coming to us. So you have to be able to take the grace, stop, not do anything. Remove lazy from your word book. Call it grace, call it relaxation, call it whatever you want to. You are not being lazy if you are not creating artwork.
As a freelancer, that was like that Roswell job. There's my bosses over there. No, I am not. I am productive 24/7. No, but as a freelancer, I would take a scooter in the hills of Asheville and go all over. But no, it's just it is full time, and I'm also managing other persons, so that's a whole different thing. But yeah, I mean, but I think in general, I mean,
Thank
as
you.
artists, absolutely, you need to take pride.
And does anyone else have any questions? Jim, I'm shocked. No question, huh? Okay, well, thank you very much. And please take a moment to come and thank them and take a look at the artwork they brought in. Thank you so much for joining us today.